the shepherd's unwavering heart. The sun beat down on the hills of Judea, baking the earth to a dusty gold. A light breeze rustled through the sparse olive trees, carrying the scent of wild thyme. Near the village of Bethany, a shepherd named Caleb sat on a rock, his staff resting across his knees, his eyes scanning his flock. 99 sheep grazed peacefully, their wool gleaming in the afternoon light. He knew each one by name: Gentle, who always stayed close; Runner, who loved to explore; Old Gray, the wisest of the ewes. Caleb was a good shepherd, a man whose life was woven into the rhythm of his flock. He guarded them from wolves and thieves, led them to the sweetest pastures, and made sure they drank from the clearest streams. His entire existence was dedicated to their safety and well-being. He was strict when he needed to be, gentle when they were afraid, and utterly devoted. As the sun began its slow descent, painting the western sky in hues of orange and purple, Caleb started the familiar count, calling each sheep to him as they gathered for the night. One by one they came, their soft bleats filling the air. Gentle, he murmured, stroking her wool. Old Gray. Blossom. Little Lamb. He counted 99. His brow furrowed. He counted again, slowly, meticulously. 99. A cold dread seeped into his heart, chilling him despite the lingering warmth of the day. One was missing. He swept his gaze over the flock, then over the surrounding hills, his eyes straining in the fading light. No sign. He called out, "Little Lamb!" The name echoed in the deepening twilight, swallowed by the vastness of the hills. No response.
Panic began to rise. Little Lamb was young, still foolish, prone to wandering after a particularly tempting patch of clover, oblivious to the dangers beyond the flock. A wolf? A jackal? A hidden crevice? The possibilities were a knot in Caleb's dot. His heart screamed to abandon the search, to secure the 99 who were safe. It was getting dark. Leaving them now, even for a moment, was risky. The sensible thing, the practical thing, was to cut his losses, to protect the many at the expense of the one. Any other shepherd would have done it. A lost lamb was a sad but accepted cost of the trade. But Caleb was not just any shepherd. He knew Little Lamb's anxious bleat when she was separated, the way her wool felt beneath his hand, the unique curve of her horns. To him, she was not just one of 100. She was his lamb, a precious, unique life. And she was lost. He turned to his hired hand, Ezra. "Take the 99 back to the fold. Secure the gate. I go to find Little Lamb." Ezra looked at him with disbelief. "Master, it is almost night. The wolves will be out. You risk your life, and for one foolish lamb? Let her go, Caleb. It is God's will if she is lost." Caleb shook his head, his jaw set. "God's will is for all to be found, Ezra, and I will not rest until she is. These 99 are safe within the fold. One is lost in the darkness. My heart is with the lost one." With only his staff and a small lamp, Caleb began his search. He retraced the day's paths, calling Little Lamb's name, his voice growing hoarse. He scanned every bush, peered into every shadow. The night grew cold. The familiar hills became alien and menacing. Every rustle of leaves, every distant howl sent a jolt of fear through him. He imagined her bleeding alone, afraid, perhaps injured. Hours passed. The stars wheeled overhead. Caleb was exhausted, his feet raw, his body aching, but he pressed on, driven by an unwavering love. He clambered over rocks, slid down loose scree, his lamp casting a small, defiant circle of light against the immense darkness. He was a small, solitary figure in a vast, indifferent world, utterly focused on his single purpose. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he heard it. A faint, terrified bleating, thin and reedy, coming from a deep, thorny ravine he had almost missed. His heart leaped. "Little lamb!" he cried out, scrambling down the treacherous slope. There she was, tangled in a thicket of thorns, her wool caught, her legs scraped, trembling with fear and exhaustion. She had wandered off in pursuit of a sweet-smelling flower and tumbled into the hidden ravine. Caleb carefully cut her free from the thorns, his own hands getting scratched. She was too weak, too terrified to stand. He did not scold her. He did not berate her for her foolishness. Instead, with a tenderness that brought tears to his own eyes, he scooped her up. He laid her gently across his shoulders, her small, warm body a precious weight against his neck. He began the long, slow climb back, the lamb secure on his shoulders. He was weary, but a profound joy filled him, washing away the fatigue and the fear. He was not returning with a tale of loss, but a story of salvation. When he reached the village, the first rays of dawn were just painting the sky. The villagers, roused by his return, came out of their homes. Ezra, the hired hand, stood at the entrance to the sheepfold. He saw Caleb, battered and bruised, but radiating an unparalleled joy, with the little lamb nestled safely on his shoulders. "He found her!" Ezra exclaimed, his own eyes wide with wonder. Caleb walked past them all, straight into his home. He gently placed little lamb by the fire, rubbed her aching legs, and gave her warm milk. Only then, with his lost ones safe, did he allow himself to rest. Later that day, as the sun climbed high, Caleb called his friends and neighbors together. "Rejoice with me," he cried, his voice full of happiness. "I have found my lost lamb." His friends cheered, not just for the sheep, but for the shepherd's heart that had refused to give up, that had valued the one lost sheep as much as the 99 safe ones. They understood. And Caleb understood something deeper that day, something that changed the way he saw not just his sheep, but himself and his God. He understood that this was the heart of the Master, Jesus, the Good Shepherd. That no matter how foolish or lost or wandering one of God's children might become, the shepherd would never abandon them. He would leave the 99, traverse the darkest ravines, endure the longest nights, and search until he found that one. And when he found them, he would not scold or punish, but would lift them gently onto his shoulders, carry them home, and rejoice with all of heaven. For in the eyes of the true shepherd, not a single one is ever expendable, and no one is ever truly left behind. The joy of little lamb's return was bright and pure, like the morning sun that had guided Caleb home. But the ordeal had left its mark. In the days that followed, little lamb was not the same. She was timid, clinging to the shadow of Caleb's legs, her bleats soft and anxious. The thorns had left thin, silvery scars on her legs, and she walked with a slight limp. She was a living reminder of the darkness, a creature marked by the wilderness. The rest of the flock was not as forgiving as their shepherd. The older, wiser sheep saw little lamb's limp and remembered the anxious night they had spent huddled together, vulnerable, because of her foolishness. They would occasionally nudge her away from the choicest patches of grass, their silent message clear: "You are a liability. You endangered us all." Ezra, the hired hand, felt the same way. "She is weak, Caleb," he said one afternoon, watching little lamb stumble. "She slows the flock,
Perhaps it would be better to sell her at the market. Her scars will lower the price, but it would be better for the 99. Caleb stopped, his gentle face hardening with a rare firmness. He called out, "Little lamb!" The small sheep, hearing the familiar voice that had called her out of the darkness, trotted to him, ignoring her limp. Caleb knelt and ran his hand over the faint scars on her leg. He did not see weakness. He saw a story. "You see a flaw, Ezra," Caleb said, his voice quiet but carrying the weight of authority. "You see a creature that is less than whole. I see the mark of my love."
He looked at his own hands, which still bore the scratches from the thorns. "I see a lamb who was so precious to me that I was willing to face the darkness to find her. These scars are not a sign of her foolishness, they are a sign of her value. She is marked not by the wilderness, but by the shepherd who saved her from it." From that day on, Caleb's care for little lamb became a living parable for the entire flock. When he led them to a new pasture, he would walk at little lamb's slower pace, letting the 99 learn patience. When a sudden storm swept through the hills, sending the sheep into a panic, Caleb would scoop little lamb into his arms first, his actions a clear declaration that the vulnerable would always have his immediate protection. Slowly, the attitude of the flock began to change. They saw that the shepherd's love was not a finite resource, divided among them. His special attention to the weakest among them did not diminish his care for the strong. It deepened it. They began to understand that his heart was big enough for all of them, and that his strength was most visible in his tenderness for the one who had been lost. The older sheep stopped nudging her away. The stronger ones would often graze near her, as if they too had taken on a small part of the shepherd's protective mantle. One evening, months later, as the flock rested securely in the fold, the howl of a wolf echoed from a distant ridge. The sheep stirred, a ripple of fear passing through them. Little lamb, startled, let out a terrified bleat. Before Caleb could even move, Old Gray, the wise ewe, shifted her body, positioning herself between little lamb and the sound. Another strong ram did the same on the other side. They formed a small, protective wall around her. They had learned the shepherd's heart. The flock was no longer just 99 individuals and one liability. They were one body, and the well-being of the weakest was the responsibility of all. Caleb watched from the gate, his heart swelling with a love so profound it felt like a prayer. He looked at little lamb, no longer just a rescued creature, but a teacher in her own right. Her scars had become a sacrament, a visible sign of an invisible grace that had healed not only her fear, but the flock's pride. He finally understood. The Good Shepherd doesn't just rescue his children from the darkness and then leave them to fend for themselves. His care continues. He walks with them, tends to their lingering wounds, and uses their story of being found to teach the rest of the flock what love truly means. The ones who have been lost and found are not a burden. They are a precious reminder of the shepherd's unwavering heart. A heart that will always leave the 99 to go after the one, because his flock is not complete until every last one, especially the most broken, is safe within the fold.
The years spun on, carrying the dust of seasons across the Judean hills. Caleb, the Good Shepherd, grew older, his beard flecked with more gray, his hands more calloused, but his eyes still held the same profound depth of love. Little lamb, no longer so little, but still bearing the faint silvery lines on her leg, was now an old ewe herself, often seen gently nudging younger, wayward lambs back into the fold. Her initial fear had transformed into a quiet wisdom, her scars a badge of experience rather than shame. The flock under Caleb's care was renowned throughout the region, not just for its health or the quality of its wool, but for its unusual unity. Other shepherds marveled at how Caleb's sheep seemed to watch out for each other, how the strong often guided the weak, how the rambunctious ones learned patience. They couldn't quite explain it, but they felt a palpable sense of peace and belonging radiating from Caleb's fold. One harsh winter, a severe drought struck the neighboring lands. Pastures withered and streams dried up. Many shepherds faced ruin, their flocks growing weak and desperate. One such shepherd, a young, proud man named Gideon, from a distant village, watched his sheep slowly starve. He had always prided himself on his strength and self-reliance, scorning any shepherd who showed weakness by doting on a single lost lamb. Now, his pride offered no fodder for his dying flock.
In desperation, Gideon journeyed to Caleb, whom he had heard spoken of with a mixture of respect and bewilderment. He expected to beg for a share of Caleb's land, or to haggle for a few strong ewes. He certainly did not expect to see a scarred, elderly ewe little lamb still thriving within Caleb's flock. "Caleb," Gideon began, his voice rough with shame and desperation, "my flock is dying. I have nowhere left to turn. I need help." Caleb listened patiently, his wise eyes taking in Gideon's ravaged face, his slumped shoulders. He didn't offer judgment for past pride. He simply said, "Come, bring your flock to my fold. My pasture is yours." Gideon was stunned. "But my sheep are weak. They will drain your resources. They are not as strong as yours. Some are already too far gone." Caleb smiled gently. "My fold is always open. My pasture is for all who hunger. And my heart has learned that the weakest among us are often the ones who teach us the most about the shepherd's love." He glanced at little lamb who had approached, as if sensing the conversation. Gideon brought his emaciated flock to Caleb's lands. They were a sorry sight next to Caleb's robust sheep. But Caleb's flock, led by Old Gray and the now venerable little lamb, did not shy away. Instead, they shared their grazing spots, nuzzled the trembling newcomers, and waited patiently at the water troughs. They had learned the lesson of the one. They understood that the fold was not just a place of protection, but a community of compassion. As weeks turned into months, Gideon watched in awe. He saw Caleb tirelessly tending to his own thriving flock, while simultaneously nurturing Gideon's struggling sheep back to health. He saw Caleb spend extra hours comforting a frightened ewe, mending a broken leg, or carefully leading a disoriented lamb. He saw the scars on Caleb's hands, still visible after all these years. He also saw little lamb, moving slowly but surely, often seen nuzzling one of Gideon's sickest sheep, a silent ambassador of hope. One evening, as Gideon sat by the fire, watching Caleb gently rub down a shivering, newly rescued lamb from his own original flock, a dam broke within him. The years of pride, self-reliance, and judgment dissolved into a flood of tears. "Caleb," he choked out, "I never understood. I always thought a shepherd's strength was in preventing loss, in keeping the 99 perfect. I judged you for risking so much for one foolish lamb. But now I see. Your true strength is in your willingness to lose yourself for the sake of the lost. Your heart, it's like the master's." Caleb looked at him, his eyes shining. The Master taught me that the flock is not just a number, Gideon. It is a family, and no true shepherd leaves a child behind. The love that searched for little lamb is the same love that opens the gate for your flock. It is the river of grace that flows from his heart through mine, and now it flows through yours too. Gideon, transformed not by a dramatic miracle, but by the quiet, consistent love of a shepherd and his flock, returned to his own lands a changed man. He became a shepherd known not for his strength, but for his boundless compassion. He would often tell the story of Caleb and little lamb, and how the mark of a shepherd's love was found not in the perfection of the flock, but in the unwavering heart that refused to give up on even the smallest, weakest, or most foolish one. And so the legacy of Caleb's unwavering heart spread far beyond his hills. It was a testament that Jesus, the Good Shepherd, truly does leave no child behind. His love is not just a promise, but a persistent, searching, and ultimately restoring reality that extends its fold to embrace all who are lost, bringing them home to a place where they are not merely counted, but truly cherished.